Understanding property tax laws and rules can be complicated. However, property taxes affect us all. This short video is intended to help Idahoans better understand how property taxes work in Idaho. Perhaps the best place to start is to remember that there are multiple groups with locally elected officials called taxing districts that collect property taxes from Idahoans. County commissioners, city council members, highway district commissioners, and school boards are all under pressure to set budgets within the desires of the people. Ask any of them. This is not always easy because some are yelling in their ear to spend big with huge budgets, while others will become equally vocal if the budget doesn't show clear financial restraint. To best understand how property taxes work, let's start with the basics. Our current property tax system requires that a taxing district, such as a city or county, first propose a budget. Keep in mind, property taxes are only a portion of the taxing district's entire budget. For this example, let's say the proposed property tax budget is $1 million. Next, the proposed budget is divided by the total assessed value of every property within the taxing district. This is called the tax base. Let's say the tax base is $100 million. The result is the tax levy, which in this example is 0.01 or 1%. This is the figure that is multiplied times the taxable value, which is the assessed value less any exemptions of your property, to determine the amount of taxes you pay to that taxing district. In this example, if your home was worth $200,000, then your taxes for that taxing district would be $2,000. The same process is repeated for each taxing district that overlies your property. The sum of the taxes due to each overlying taxing district is the total amount you pay in property taxes on that piece of property. Idaho state law says that these taxing districts can only raise the property tax portion of their budgets by a maximum of 3% each year. But there are a few loopholes that allow them to raise it more than 3%. This law was made so that citizens couldn't be overwhelmed by a sudden tax spike at once by one or multiple of these taxing districts. So how do property taxes increase by more than 3% in many areas of the state? Let's look at some examples. Normally, as new people move into Idaho, it spreads the existing tax burden over more households. This usually means that levy rates will decrease over time. However, that decrease in the levy rate is offset by any increase in assessed value of your property. For example, if spending stays exactly the same and the value of all properties in the district goes up by 300%, the levy rate will decrease by 300%, so the net amount of tax collected is exactly the same. Therefore, the amount of spending by taxing districts is what drives increases in taxes. Growth will generally mean lower property taxes unless the taxing district budgets are increasing at a faster rate than the growth. For instance, in our original example, let's say that in year 2, local properties increased in value by 6% and new construction growth was 6%. So the tax base is now $112 million. In this example, we have a fiscally conservative taxing district board, and they kept the increase in their property tax budget at 3%. So now it is $1,030,000. After doing the math, the new levy rate is 0.009196. Since your home is now worth 6% more, its new value is $212,000. However, taxing districts are allowed to increase their budgets more than 3% to account for necessary services provided to new construction. This is done by multiplying a maximum of 90% of the value of the new construction by the future levy rate. This is the value that is available to be added to the budget to account for new construction. The taxing district does not have to increase their budget by that amount, but they are legally authorized to do so. Even then, the maximum amount the budget can grow in 1 year is 8%, including new construction. If the taxing district is growing fast enough and takes the maximum 8%, it may actually increase taxes depending on the actual rate of growth. Let's look at an example. If a fast-growing taxing district increases their budget by the full 8%, the new budget in our example would be $1,080,000. If, as in our last example, the new construction grew by 6% and the existing properties increased in value by an average of 6%, the new tax base would still be $112 million. However, the levy rate would now be 0.009643 due to the increased budget. Therefore, since your home increased in value the amount of the 6%, your tax will increase by $44.32 to $2,044.32. An increase of 2.2% despite the rapid growth since the taxing district significantly grew their budget. However, sometimes, when the population is increasing rapidly and home building cannot keep pace with demand, this increased demand causes home prices to rise more quickly than any other types of property. If your home value increased more rapidly than commercial or other property due to increased home demand by, say, 15% to $230,000, your taxes would now be $2,217.85, an increase of nearly 11%. It all depends on the level of spending by the local taxing district. For example, back to the original scenario. If the tax base shrinks from $100 million to $90 million, but the budget stays the same, the levy rate will have to increase to raise the $1 million in property taxes for the budget. The levy rate would then be 0.011111. If your home value was now only $190,000, the new levy rate would require you to pay $2,111.09, which is an increase of $111.09. Therefore, if the elected leaders of your taxing district don't cut their spending, or worse, increase spending during the downturn, your taxes will increase even when your home values are decreasing. It is all driven by the budget of the local taxing district. So keep in mind, when talking about lowering or raising taxes, the only tool taxpayers have to help determine their level of property taxes is to elect individuals who are most inclined to follow the spending desires of their constituents, since they are the only ones who will determine the property tax budget for the taxing district. It is this property tax budget which directly determines the level of property taxes you pay. We hope that this short video has shed some light on a few facets of property taxation in Idaho.